Our LC Sports Soccer Player of the Week this week is the one and only Towns Harris. Towns plays for the 4 and 5-year-old Pandas, and what a beast he is on the soccer field. His coach says he shows hustle, he shows grit, he listens well, he's encouraging to his teammates, and he has shown amazing amount of growth as the season has gone on. Towns, great job. Towns Harris, you are our LC Sports Player of the Week. This week's Lasso Coach of the Week is Erin Madison of the Hot Shots in 4 and 5-year-olds. What a tremendous coach Erin is. Y'all, she does all the coaching while holding a baby on the sideline. Tremendous dedication. She shows great patience with those kids. She is just an amazing example for them to see. Erin, great job. You are our Lasso Coach of the Week.
All right, welcome to episode 24 with Winning with the Home Team. I'm Katrina, and man, soccer season's going really good. We're talking about impact with the kids and the coaches. And today we have a really special guest that Todd, I'll let you introduce her and tell them, all that's included in.
Yeah. So this week we're talking about toughness. That's the virtue that our soccer players are talking with their coaches about. And so you asked me, do you know anybody tough? And I know a lot of tough people, actually. But one of the toughest that I know is Miss Debbie Myers. She's with us today. So a little bit about Debbie. Actually, I'll let you introduce yourself. But before you do, Debbie is the mother to one of my very dear and best friends in my life, Richard Houston. And Richard was a police officer for the city of Mesquite. We actually met in junior high in 7th grade and became fast and close friends.
So he knows all your secrets?
He knows all my secrets.
And Miss Debbie, you do too.
Well, they're still coming out.
She may not know all of them. Richard gave his life heroically on December 3rd, 2021 in the line of duty. And so we honor him. And we honor his mom today for being here and being brave enough to talk to us. If anyone knows what toughness means, it's you. So let me just say publicly, thank you. It takes a lot to come sit here and talk about it. And I know that it's been almost 3 years now.
It happened right before Christmas.
Yeah. So, but I want to honor him. So let's start by honoring his mom. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Well, I have 5 children, and I'm blessed with 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
And so basically I'm retired, and I stay busy going to football games, baseball games, babysitting, and the like, and loving every minute of it.
You're living that grandmother life is what you're doing.
Yeah. So 10 grandchildren from ages what to what?
The youngest is 3 to 22.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. So you do stay busy with all the things. Yeah.
So when we were kids, you were a single mom.
Yes.
And you were juggling all kinds of things. And so while we were taking advantage of you being at work and getting into mischief.
Taking advantage? Todd Murphree.
And sometimes.
Well, he admitted it right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
But talk a little bit with our virtue this week about being about toughness. There's a lot of people that listen that are single moms, and we see them bring their kiddos to the soccer fields and the basketball games. How difficult was that for you? What was the toughest part about being a single mom raising all those kiddos?
Just being able to be there when they need it. The different times that.
Yeah. What's the toughest age to parent?
I think all of them.
Yeah. If you were to do one over again, because maybe it was a less hard one. I don't want to even use the word easy, but what age would that be?
If I was to do it over as far as the easy part?
Yeah.
When they're little.
Babies. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. That's what I keep hearing.
Even toddlers are tough anymore. So
Yeah.
Right.
I've got a sassy grandbaby. So.
Yeah.
So you, here's the interesting thing about you is you were married to a police officer for a while.
Yes.
Dick. And how long were you guys married?
10 years.
10 years. And so he worked for the Mesquite Police Department as well. And then he had an accident at work, right? Do you remember how all that played out?
Well, he had several accidents.
Yeah. And it left him with some disabilities. In fact,
it was his heart.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had a stroke when he was only like 31 or something.
Wow.
Right. In fact, when I first met him, he couldn't speak. And so when I would go to their house, he was very big on the music.
Guitar.
He played guitar.
Yes.
And I'll always remember being at his house, and he was just living room full of guitars and playing musical instruments. And it was really cool. But he was a police officer too. And then did he retired early because of that? Or how long, do you remember how long he was there?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
But he, he had to do it because of his health.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I think we were in 9th grade when he died, and I remember being at that funeral. I mean, funerals are sad anyway, but I remember looking at Richard and just thinking, I can't imagine how hard this is because, I have a fantastic father. And I couldn't.
He worshipped him.
Yes, he did. So did it surprise you at all when Richard decided to follow in his footsteps and become a police officer?
I was ready for it because I knew he's always said that's what he, wanted to be since he was 2 and wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and guns at his side.
That is so true. Yeah, that is so true. And then, so did he talk about it with you before he decided to apply and get into that?
He did, but it was just like a given.
Yeah.
It was going to be.
So there's a lot of spouses and moms out there who have sons or daughters that go into police work. And how hard is that both as a spouse and a mom? How hard is it to know that your loved ones are going out there every night?
It's very.
Yeah.
I was constantly telling him, be safe.
Right.
Safe.
Right. Yeah. My mom, man, she worried about me every day. I think she kept a lot of it in.
You do.
Yeah, you kind of have to, right? Yeah. But I know that it bothered her somewhat. My dad was a firefighter. And so, there's a lot of worry that goes along with that. And I think that's something that often gets overlooked. When I would go and, to award banquets or whatever, they were always very quick to talk about the families and, that it's not just, I think the easy part is to be the officer and go out there and do it every day. It's the families that have to suffer. And so how did you get through that as a loved one of an officer?
Just kept in touch with him is my thing.
Yeah. Right. And he, as I said earlier, he made the ultimate sacrifice, as we say, on December 3rd of 2021. Can you walk me through that day, how it happened for you, how you found out, and how that played out?
Shelley was at the hospital with Richard.
Shelley's his wife.
Right. And she called me, and basically I just screamed for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
But,
At that point, did you know that he had passed or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was,
And then did you go to the hospital? Do you remember?
No.
Okay.
Because it was,
Yeah. When was it that you kind of found out the details about how everything happened?
just bits and pieces. Through the week. A lot of it I didn't want to know the details for a long while,
Right.
I still don't know all of them.
Okay.
Because I just couldn't carry it at the time.
Yeah. And, as we talk about toughness and we talk about having to deal with all of that, what got you through that day, that week, the weeks that followed? How did you cope with it, and how did you get through all of that?
Well, a lot of prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. Did it help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can sure give you peace.
Yeah. Right. And you have family that surrounds you. And that's tough, but you lived that fear that most, like we talked about, spouses and moms live about getting that phone call out of the blue. And so there's, it happens way too frequently now. And there's a lot of people that have to live through that. But I think faith is something that, like you said, prayer is something that can help bridge that gap to finding peace. Yeah. So I don't know if that's something that everybody thinks about, or if it. I can only imagine being on the other side of things, where if my wife were going to work every day as an officer, I would be scared to death. And knowing what I know now, and I was going to talk about some of the stats, but
well, I also feel like the good Lord's right there beside you, and if and your kids are actually His, they're God's children. Richard was God's child.
Yeah,
and to know that even in what you're dealing with, that's real hard on a daily basis, knowing that the Lord is just right there next to you, and He will carry it for you if you can't.
Yeah.
It helps.
Right.
As I think about children in general, and like you hit it spot on, if we can see our children not as our own, but as God's, and God's given us our children to steward them toward Him,
Right.
I think that that's paramount. It's, and if we can understand, if I can understand how much God loves Taya way much more than I do, there's immense peace that goes into that, and is able to carry you.
I just feel blessed that I had him, as to be his mother for 40 years of his life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That was a blessing to me. Always has
And that's
been.
an amazing perspective to have.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure.
I can't imagine being able to have that perspective in your seat, but that's a testament to you and your faith. I do wonder, what age do you remember seeing him go towards that servant heart? I mean, he's really probably always had it, but do you remember a time when he was younger that you say, man, he's different. He's different than most kids.
I don't know. He's just always really carried his faith with him.
Yeah.
Even at a younger age, because they were, all my kids were in the church.
Yeah. And he was as far back as I can remember, because he was going to Shiloh Terrace Baptist Church for a long time, and was always trying to get me to go to, Wednesday night services or whatever was going on.
He was kind of quiet about it. I mean, he wasn't a boastful person.
Not at all.
He lived it.
He did. He did. Okay, so I was watching a couple videos last night, reminiscing, and one of the videos was, and I apologize, I can't remember his name, but with the police department that was cleaning his car out after everything happened that day. And he said he pulled out his gear, and with it was his Bible and his journal that was right next to him in his car. And, Richard is the one who, seeing the way he lived his life. When I was in high school, I carried my Bible with me in class, and he had such an impact on me back then. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he had his Bible and his journal with him on his last day.
He sent me numerous pictures of the Bible open, and with his squad car radios and all. And that's your office, in the squad car.
That's right.
And with the Bible open and
Yeah. He was amazing in a lot of ways. Man, just had such a huge impact on so many people. Just his funeral alone, I can't even count how many heads were there that day. But it was a ton of people, and he had such a huge impact But there are, I think we've talked about most of the stories between the two of us. Do you know? I don't know. Did I tell you this one?
I don't know.
I may be breaking news.
Okay.
Do you remember when you let us go to the Maverick game by ourselves? No, let me rephrase that. Do you remember when we went to the Maverick game by ourselves?
No.
We were in junior high.
In
and
Mesquite?
we were
Yes.
we lived in Mesquite. We were in probably 8th grade.
How far is Mesquite from Dallas?
It's far enough that you shouldn't be going in junior high.
Yeah.
It was downtown.
Okay.
And so
Downtown Dallas.
we went to the game, and then we figured out after the game that we didn't have a way to get home.
How did you get there?
I don't even remember. But I remember that the game was over, everybody was gone, and we were still outside. They had payphones at the time,
Okay.
and so we started calling around until we could find somebody.
Wow.
But how we got out there, I don't know, and I don't even remember. But there was no way that we should have been there. He was mischievous. We,
He joked a lot.
he was goofy and joked a lot. The surveyors that go and they mark. They put flags in the ground to mark their measurements and all of that. And they had gone outside of our junior high and done that all along a row of a median. And we had gotten out before a basketball game, and we went and we picked all the flags up.
Oh, man.
And they saw us and chased us off. I mean, so he wasn't a saint, right?
Yeah.
He was a typical kid. But we had such a great time growing up. He was one of a kind. And as he grew and got older, he was in band. He played the trumpet. And so I guess do you have any musicality in your lineage?
No.
Because he got that from his dad, I guess.
Yeah.
But he was a baseball player. He loved baseball. He was just all in. And I've heard Shelley talk about it before, but he was the kind of guy that if he was going to do something, he was doing it 100%. Mm-hmm. And it may not last long. Mm-hmm. He may do it for a little while and then move on to the next thing. But he did it 100%, and his faith was no different. Now that did last long. Like he was true to what he believed.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
That stood out in my mind.
Yeah.
About one Christmas when the kids, my grandkids or his kids and the rest of them from my family, for Christmas when we arrived for the get-together of exchanging gifts and things, he passed out papers to color, and each child had a part of the when Jesus was born. And then as he read the Christmas story, they would come up and with a piece of tape and tape it to the nativity scene, and when the wise men arrived and stuff, and they got to hear the story.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That. He was not shy about his faith with his kids at all.
Yeah.
He was, it was awesome. Do you remember, it was probably a couple days after this all happened when I came to your house, and do you remember the advice you gave me?
No.
Wow. This is tough.
I gave you advice?
Yes, you did. You did. You told me, and this is counter to what most people would say, but it was probably exactly what I needed to hear. You were like, if it's time, and you need to leave. Mm-hmm. Most people would say, stick with it. It's not, it is what it is. It was random.
His job was up.
Yeah. But I probably needed to hear that at that moment, that it was time. I have been through a lot in my career. And at that point, that was the loss that kind of put me over. My wife, I don't know if I've told you this or not, but at one point we were watching videos and she was looking at, I think, his writing style, and she was like, "Oh my God, you guys are the same person." Like the goofiness and the way that you handled your business and just all the similarities and stuff. And she was like, "It's almost uncanny how similar you are." And so that had a huge impact on me. Like, what do I want to do with my life? Because I want to continue to serve, but I want to do it in a way that God wants me to do it. And I don't want to keep forcing myself in a direction that is not meant for me. And so ultimately I retired just a few months shy of 25 years. And it was probably, I can honestly say, looking back, the best decision that I made. It made such a huge impact on me.
Yeah, totally.
But do you know what kind of things he struggled with as far as the job is concerned? Did he talk to you about that at all?
Just the fact of trying not to, you see so much and stuff that people wouldn't even imagine what these guys go through.
Did he tell stories or?
Some.
Yeah.
And I learned some through the book, the book I had read about him the other day.
Yeah.
But to just not carry that, with you, because you got to let that go.
Yeah.
And not affect, your home life, and that's hard because they live it day in and day out. And most of it's ugly.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Do you get the impression that he had to deal with that kind of stuff at home, or how did he put that out of his mind? And
I'm sure it was, through prayer and stuff, because,
You mentioned the book. You're talking about all of his accomplishments and some of the reports and all of that kind of stuff. And, I was going through, it may have been Shelley actually that posted part of his one of his journals that she was looking at, and I actually keep it on my desk still today, a copy of it.
I recognize the writing.
Yeah, the writing is absolutely his. And I highlight something that keeps me. I won't go into great detail, but in this was dated January 4th of 2017, which was not too long before his passing, and he's talking about depression, and he's talking about suffering through depression, but yet
he had depression.
Yeah, but even through that, this is the quote that I have highlighted. It says, "If I truly believe that God is sovereign, then I should have peace." And I often go back to that and look at it, because we were raised in a very similar way, and we are very similar. And it helps me to remember that even though you deal with all those demons, even though you deal with all of that stuff, even when he was going through it, he recognizes that God is sovereign, and that, like you mentioned earlier, Christ is right there with you. Yeah. And he talked about
fights your battles.
He does. Yeah. And so there is peace and surrender. And I don't know if you felt that at all after we lost him that day, but I often find that when I just finally just let go and give up what it is that I'm struggling with, that's
a hard thing to do for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Because you want to do it your way, or you think you can handle it. He'll show you. Sometimes you need him.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And he really is the source of toughness, if you will.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, just letting go and giving that up. The world would tell us, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep moving. But I think the source of toughness is just what you said, recognizing that God is right beside us all the time. And, if we can remember, what he said, if I truly believe that God is sovereign, then I should have peace. That could be the definition of toughness, is realizing that there is a sovereign God, remembering that even in the midst of a tragedy, like Richard, and standing on that truth like that. It's not like we're not strong in and of ourselves.
No.
We're cowards.
Yeah.
Our limits are so confined, even to what we think that they are. But yeah, I admire your faith, and I admire his faith when it came to toughness.
And the fact that he was able to show his children and his family so much.
That's huge. That's impact.
Yeah.
That we talked about last week. That's
right. They're right.
And leaving
They're
a
right.
legacy of impact and having a family that knew without a shadow of a doubt, where he stood in relationship to God. That is so huge.
So I was thinking about this. I try to stay pretty quiet now on, because I have people ask me all the time, even when I was in the job, how hard is it? Like, how hard is it? And it's difficult to explain to people because you try to explain it, but people just really can't fathom what it's like. I mean, you mentioned that, your office is in your vehicle, right? Yeah. But, trying to put words to it, working the overnight hours, it takes a toll on you because you are constantly missing things. You're living a separate world from your family most of the time. The amount of violence that you see, it's a daily thing. Yeah. Every call that you answer is no one's calling you to tell you they got engaged.
Right.
No,
it's not good news.
Right. They're calling you because someo's fighting or because they can't get along or, there's just darkness in everything. There's excessive overtime. You have officers that are taking extra jobs to pay bills and whatnot. And so that creates marriage difficulties and, job related injuries. And there's just so much, all the time. The training that you have to do to stay up to speed on everything is constant. And it's just an incredible amount of stress and pressure that's put on you every day. And you learn to cope with it and you learn to deal with it. And a lot of people figure out that they can do it well if they rely on their faith, like Richard did, or some guys don't know how to cope with it, and it ends up showing up and personifying itself in different ways that are not good. Right. And so, I'll go back to December 3rd. That day, I was actually in Orlando, Florida, and I was visiting my daughter, who lives in Orlando. Yeah, and I saw that there was an officer that had been shot and killed in Mesquite. Growing up in Mesquite, I mean, I know some people there, especially one. And so I remember I texted him, and I was like, hey, just checking on you, what happened? And he didn't respond, which is not like him. And I was like, okay. So I waited a little bit, called him, no answer. Then I started panicking. Yeah. And so then I'll never forget, I called my chief of police back here. I was in Bedford and called him, and he was like, well, let me see what I can find out. I called my mom. Yeah, man, my mom loved Richard. She loved him like a son. And she was like, I don't know. Eventually, I was in a parking lot of a barbecue restaurant in Orlando, Florida, when my mom called me back, and she said, she had been talking to people on the back end of things, and she said it was him. And I remember crying like a baby in the parking lot of Orlando, Florida, of a barbecue restaurant. And I had to get back in my car before I ever went in, and I just broke down. It was terrible. It was terrible. And all I could think about was what a great man he is and what a great person he is. And it felt like, because we had known each other for so long, like a piece of me was gone. And I'm not even his mom. Like, I can't even imagine. You said you just scream because you don't know how. There is nothing that prepares you for something out of the blue like that. And then when I started hearing about, how things played out, eventually I was like, no, I don't want to know anymore. I don't need to know anymore. So I don't know if you experienced some of those same emotions. But
I couldn't go to the trial or anything. I just couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Me either. I didn't go. Didn't want to go because I didn't want to know the details. I wanted to remember him for the person that he was. Really proud of Shelby. That's his daughter. I mean, she stood up at the funeral and spoke beautifully.
I have run into so many people that have told me that they played that part of it over and over because of, that she was just awesome speaker.
She is.
Yeah.
And
That's where her
That's amazing.
calling is.
talking about impact, she is a champion for Christ.
Yeah.
And, I don't remember if it was the funeral or afterwards, but I think it was the funeral when she talked about how she didn't wish anything negative on this person. She just wanted for him to know Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That's
toughness.
She meant it. That is absolute toughness. So the fact that she was able to get up there and talk about that stuff was just
Remarkable.
Incredible. But, it did bring up, as I was going through and I was watching some of those videos last night, I watched him and I watched him receiving an award because he won. I mean, he had like 40-something commendations, 2 life-saving awards. Like, the guy did his job well. And I think the last conversation he and I had, believe it or not, was I remember my wife and I was telling her one night, I was like, did you know that the drummer from Pearl Jam lived next door to Richard?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
cool.
she was like, no,
fun.
I think you guys were living on Statler at the time. And she was like, whatever. And I was like, no, seriously. So, of course, I text Richard and I'm like, hey, like, she doesn't believe me. And he was like, yes, absolutely. So we talked about that. This was not long before December 3rd. And so we had that conversation. And then when everything happened, it was just like, who am I going to talk to about this kind of stuff, about like our childhood. And like, I don't have anybody left to talk about what it was like growing up then. And so then when I was watching some of the videos, and he is accepting this award or this commendation, and it's just weird to watch him in the flesh, grabbing that, because it just takes you back so much. And as I'm looking at that, what I'm seeing is just what all he was going through at the time, between reading his journal and knowing the job that he did for a living, and the conversations that he and I had, that he was going through stuff at work, because you're always going through stuff at work. I'm pretty sure that most officers walk around just harboring so much inside. I was diagnosed with PTSD several years ago, and there are incidents that will probably live with me for the rest of my life. And I was looking at some statistics earlier this morning, just the amount of stress that these officers face every day, and the toughness that it takes to even get up, strap on that vest, and go out into a society that really, if they're honest, they don't really want you around. There are a lot of people out there that say thank you, to the point sometimes where you feel guilty about saying you're welcome. I didn't really do anything, but there are a lot of people out there that they just assume you not be anywhere around, and they don't take the time to realize how much officers put on the line every day. And it's not just, getting shot at, because, let's be honest, not every officer is getting shot at every day, right? Yeah. But what they are doing is they are answering call after call after call after call, and it just takes so much pressure, or it just causes so much pressure to be placed on your life. And to watch Richard receiving that, I'm just thinking, man, I can put myself in that place where you go and you receive that award, but what was the cost? What's the cost for that flimsy little thing that you put on a wall, that plaque on the wall, or whatever?
He didn't brag much to me about him.
And
he'd always say, "Oh, it's not much, but I got such and such." Yeah, it is something,
But that's the kind of person that he is, and that's the kind of person that most officers are.
Hannah, his middle daughter, just put together a thing on Facebook about all of them as they were growing up, and the last one is Richard sitting there in his truck and thanking everybody for his birthday wishes. And in the same breath, he was saying, reach out to somebody today, because you don't know what they're dealing with, and what's on their heart.
Right.
That's a lot of it too, is caring about others. The love.
Yeah.
for others.
Which, I mean, no doubt that's why most people get into that line of work anyway, is because they truly care and they truly want to serve. And when you go to hire a police officer, what you're looking for is that heart. You're looking for the heart that Richard Houston had, and he had it in just abundance, all the way through to the very end. If I were to ask you, how many police officers do you think there are in the United States? What do you think the number would be?
Oh, how many police officers are in the United States? Man.
I have no idea.
Yeah. I'm going to go 300,000.
No, actually more than double that.
700,000?
Yeah, in 2022, there were 708,000 police officers in the United States. I was looking at some stats from the University of Chicago, put this out. In 2021, which is the year that Richard was killed, there were 73 officers that were killed in a felonious manner that year, right? Same year, 15,369 officers were injured by assault. And then, of course, there's countless injuries to, substance exposure, traffic-related deaths, things like that. But in a profession where there's 700,000 of you and 15,000 plus are injured by being assaulted every year, that's not the kind of job that most people, sign up for and go to.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I was looking at the Atlanta Police Department did a study, and they found that the average lifespan of a police officer is 66 years. The average lifespan of general males is 75 years, right? The average citizen has 2 to 3 traumatic incidents in a lifetime. And the average police officer has 178 in their career.
Wow.
And so we talk about, what is it that you have to deal with every day? It's not the getting shot at. It's all the other stuff. And so the reason I bring all that up is because to have someone like Richard, who was, by the grace of God, is journaling this stuff to leave behind what it is that he was going through. He was raw and real and true to what it is that he was going through, and yet still found a way to preach the gospel to those that would listen. Still found a way to say, hey, this is how I get through. And clearly he got it from you, because that's the same thing that you believe. But man, when I think about tough, I think about people that are able to do that. Yeah. It's just incredible to me.
Yeah. That's really good.
I will ask you as we close here, if you had to give advice, to someone that's struggling with whether it be something traumatic or a death of someone that is a loved one, what is the best thing that you could tell that person?
Don't give up.
Yeah. Do you is there a certain way that we talk about your faith and praying? Do you do it a certain way, or do you just rely on God?
Yeah, it's an everyday, and it's every day in your life. It's not a one-time,
right?
Or go to him when you're in trouble. It's a way of living.
Yeah. Well, Debbie, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I made it through without crying today. You made it through without crying.
Tough, by the way.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Because many tears have been shed over this topic. But for you to do the job that you did, I've had a front row seat to your family for a long time, and you're an amazing person.
Thank you.
And you raised an incredible man.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I can't think of a better friend that I would rather have taken that journey with than him. Just what an incredible person. So.
Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, that is episode 24. And again, toughness, man, when you ask me about toughness, I think, between football and police work. I know a lot of strong people, but that doesn't equal toughness.
It doesn't. Nope.
But, people like Debbie and those that go to battle for our God every day, to me, that's what makes us tough. So hopefully you guys can kind of see the same thing. And we're thankful that you continue to watch and support us. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.